People call me a great father, but my daughter calls me a soulless old man sitting on a pile of money. Right there at Christmas dinner, I saw fear in my daughter's trembling eyes as she handed me a slice of pie. I felt something was wrong, but I didn't panic. I did only one thing: I swapped my plate with her husband. And 5 minutes later, hell officially began for my family. I'm grateful you're here with me today. Before we begin, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. It helps me know who's part of this community. Just a friendly reminder, this story contains some fictional elements for storytelling and educational purposes. Any similarities to actual names or places are coincidental. However, the lessons I'm sharing are meaningful and worth your time. People called me a great father, a provider, a man who sacrificed everything to raise his kids right after their mother passed. But my daughter Rachel had a different name for me. She called me a soulless corpse sitting on a pile of money. I didn't know that then. Not on that Christmas night when the tree lights twinkled and the fireplace crackled with warmth. Not when I watched her carry that apple pie across the room, her hands trembling just slightly as she set the plate in front of me. But I saw something in her eyes, something that made my chest tighten, something that looked like death waiting for an invitation. So I did the only thing I could think of. I switched plates with her husband. 5 minutes later, all hell broke loose. My name is Douglas Patterson. I'm 58 years old, a retired treasury manager, and for the past 6 years, I've lived alone in this small house in Ohio. Well, alone until tonight. Tonight was Christmas, and my living room was full of the people I loved most. The tree stood in the corner, covered in lights that cast soft colors across the walls. Ornaments hung from every branch, some older than my kids, handmade things Margaret and I had collected over 28 years of marriage. The fireplace burned steady and warm, filling the room with the scent of oak. Andrew, my younger son, was clearing the dining table. 32 years old, steady job, good head on his shoulders. He'd driven 3 hours from Columbus just to be here. Lily, my granddaughter, sat on the floor near the tree, surrounded by torn wrapping paper and new toys. 7 years old, blonde curls bouncing as she played with a stuffed reindeer. Her laughter made the house feel alive again. But Garrett, Rachel's husband, sat in the corner armchair. Quiet. Too quiet. He'd barely said 10 words since they arrived. His hands rested on his knees, and every now and then he'd glance toward the kitchen where Rachel was finishing dessert. Something felt off. Rachel came through the doorway carrying a tray with a single slice of pie, golden crust steam still rising. She smiled as she walked toward me. That smile should have felt warm, like when she was a little girl climbing into my lap for bedtime stories. But tonight, it didn't reach her eyes. Tonight, it looked rehearsed. She set the plate down in front of me with care, almost ceremonial. Dad, I made this apple pie especially for you. It has rum in it, just like you used to love. The scent hit me. Cinnamon butter baked apples and the sharp sweetness of rum. My stomach twisted. Honey, you know I can't have alcohol anymore. The rum doesn't mix well with my blood pressure medication. Her smile faltered. Just for a second. Then it came back brighter, more insistent. It's just a tiny bit, Dad. 1 bite won't hurt. I made it special for you. Her voice had an edge to it, something that made me uneasy. I glanced at her hands. They were shaking, just slightly, enough that I noticed. I shook my head gently. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I really can't. Andrew glanced over. Dad's been good about his meds, Rachel. You know how he is. Rachel didn't look at Andrew. She kept her eyes locked on me, waiting, watching. Like she needed me to eat that pie more than anything else in the world. I didn't want to hurt her feelings or make a scene on Christmas. So I did what I thought was the kind thing. I reached for the plate and slid it across the table toward Garrett. Garrett, help your old man out here. You love apple pie, don't you? Garrett blinked. He looked at the plate, then at Rachel. Their eyes met for just a heartbeat, and I saw something pass between them. A question, a hesitation, or maybe a warning. Rachel's voice came out tight. Of course. Garrett will finish it. Garrett picked up the fork. He cut into the pie, lifted a piece to his mouth, and chewed. It's good. Really good, Rachel exhaled. Her shoulders dropped like she'd been holding her breath. Lily ran over, waving her reindeer. Grandpa, look, he can fly. I smiled and pulled her into a hug. Andrew brought out hot chocolate. We sat around the table talking about nothing important. 10 minutes passed. Maybe 15, and then Garrett stopped mid-sentence. His fork clattered against the plate. The sound cut through the room like a gunshot. Everyone turned to look. His hand was shaking. Badly. The fork slipped from his grip and hit the floor. His voice came out slurred, thick. I don't feel... He tried to stand. His legs buckled. Andrew shot up and caught him before he could fall. Garrett, what's wrong? Andrew's voice was sharp with alarm. Garrett's eyes were unfocused. His pupils looked too big. He blinked slowly, like trying to clear fog from his vision. His mouth moved, but no words came out. Just a mumble, low and broken. Lily started crying. Daddy! Rachel stood frozen. Her face had gone pale. Not the kind of pale you get from shock. The kind you get when you realize something went very, very wrong. I didn't move. I stayed in my chair, hands flat on the table, and I watched her. I watched the way her breath came fast and shallow. I watched the way her eyes darted from Garrett to the empty plate and back again. I watched the way her fingers curled into fists at her sides. Andrew lowered Garrett into the chair. Garrett, can you hear me? Garrett's head lolled to one side. He mumbled something that might have been a number, or nothing at all. And in that moment, while everyone else focused on Garrett, I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. And I saw it. Just for a heartbeat. Just for one terrible, undeniable second. Her face wasn't full of shock or concern. It was full of fear. Not for Garrett, but for herself. Because she knew. She knew I'd given him that plate. And she knew what was supposed to happen. Andrew caught Garrett before he hit the floor, easing him back into the chair with surprising gentleness. Garrett's head lolled forward to chin, nearly touching his chest. His breathing was shallow, uneven. Garrett, can you hear me? Andrew's voice was tight controlled, but I could hear the alarm underneath. Garrett mumbled something wet and slurred like his mouth was full of cotton. His eyes fluttered but didn't focus. Lily dropped her reindeer and ran to Rachel, wrapping her arms around her mother's legs. What's wrong with Daddy? Her voice broke on the last word, high and scared. Rachel scooped her up, holding her tight. It's okay, baby. Daddy just had a little too much wine earlier. He'll be fine. Her voice was soothing, practiced, but her hands were shaking against Lily's back. I stayed where I was watching. I didn't move to help. Not yet. Because something didn't add up. I'd been watching Garrett all evening, 2 glasses of wine, maybe 3. He'd sipped them slowly. That wasn't enough to put a grown man in this state. Not even close. Andrew looked over at me. Dad, should I call 911? Before I could answer, Rachel cut in. No, we don't need that. Her voice came out sharp, almost panicked. She cleared her throat and softened it. He just needs to rest. It'll pass. Right, Garrett. Garrett's head lifted slightly. I just need to lie down. The words dragged out of him, each one an effort. I stepped closer and knelt in front of him, placing my hand on his shoulder. Son, look at me. How many fingers am I holding up? I held up 3 fingers, clear and steady. Garrett squinted. His pupils were huge, swallowing up most of the color in his eyes. The 3. He paused, tilted his head. No. 4. I glanced at Andrew. Our eyes met. Andrew's jaw tightened. Garrett, can you stand? I asked. He nodded, but when he tried to push himself up, his legs buckled. Andrew grabbed him, keeping him upright. Sweat beaded on Garrett's forehead. His shirt collar was damp, and his hands were trembling worse than Rachel's had been. This wasn't alcohol. I'd seen drunk men before. Hell, I'd been drunk myself in my younger days. This was something else. Rachel was already gathering coats from the rack, scooping up Lily's toys and shoving them into a bag. We need to get him home. He'll feel better once he's in his own bed. Andrew helped Garrett to his feet. Garrett leaned heavily on him, feet dragging. I got you. Just a few more steps. Rachel hurried ahead to open the front door. Cold air rushed in, carrying snow. The storm had started while we weren't paying attention. I could see it falling under the porch light, thick and silent. Lily clung to Rachel's neck, face buried in her mother's shoulder. Mommy, I'm scared. Don't be scared, baby. Daddy's okay. Rachel kissed the top of her head, but her eyes were locked on Garrett, watching him stumble toward the door. I followed them outside. The cold bit at my face. Andrew guided Garrett down the front steps, one careful step at a time. Rachel unlocked the car and opened the passenger door. Between them, they managed to get Garrett settled into the seat. His head fell back against the headrest. His eyes closed. Rachel turned to me. For a moment, we just stood there, snow falling between us. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. The hug was quick, perfunctory. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry we ruined your Christmas. I pulled back to look at her face. You didn't ruin anything. Just take care of him, Rachel. She nodded, but she didn't meet my eyes. I will. She climbed into the driver's seat. Andrew closed the passenger door and stepped back. The engine started, headlights cutting through the dark. I watched the taillights disappear down the street, red smudges in the falling snow. Andrew stood beside me on the porch, his breath misting. That wasn't just wine, was it? I didn't answer right away. I was still thinking about the way Rachel's hands had shaken. The way she'd insisted we not call an ambulance. The way she'd watched me when I slid that plate toward Garrett. No, I said finally. It wasn't. Andrew looked at me, questions written all over his face. But I wasn't ready to voice what I was thinking. Not yet. Go on inside. I'll be in a minute. He hesitated, then nodded, and went back through the door. I stayed on the porch watching the snow fall, letting the cold settle into my bones. When I finally went back inside, the house felt too quiet. The tree lights were still on, but the warmth from earlier was gone. It felt hollow now. Empty. I walked through the living room, picking up plates and mugs. And then I stopped. My eyes landed on the plate where Garrett had been sitting. The one I'd given him. The one Rachel had made for me. Most of the pie was gone, but there was still a piece left. A corner, ragged and small, sitting in a smear of filling. I stood there for a long moment staring at it. That voice in the back of my mind was talking now. Louder than it had any right to be. What if? I set the tray down, went to the kitchen, opened the drawer and pulled out a Ziploc bag. My hands were steady as I used a fork to slide the remaining piece of pie into the bag. I sealed it carefully, pressing out the air. I didn't know why I was doing this. Didn't have a reason I could put into words. But some part of me, some instinct honed from years of managing money and spotting inconsistencies, told me I needed to keep this, just in case. I carried the bag out to the garage. It was colder out there, my breath misting in the dark. I opened the deep freezer we kept for bulk groceries, the one Andrew never touched, because he didn't even know the code to the lock. I placed the bag inside, buried it under a package of frozen peas. I closed the freezer lid and stood there in the cold, my hand still resting on the metal. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, something much colder had taken root in my chest. Doubt, fear, and the terrible whisper of a question I wasn't ready to ask out loud. What if my daughter just tried to harm me? That night, I could not sleep. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, replaying the evening over and over. The look on Garrett's face, the way his fork clattered to the floor, the way Rachel's expression flickered when she saw him stumble. Around 2 a.m, I gave up. I slipped out of bed and walked down the hallway to the small office at the back of the house. The room was cold. I flicked on the desk lamp. Its yellow glow pooled across the wooden surface where I kept my files, my old checkbooks, the things Margaret used to tease me about. I pulled open the bottom drawer and lifted out a stack of bank statements, some from years ago. I was not sure what I was looking for. I just needed to see something in black and white. I set the papers on the desk and began leafing through them. My hands were steady. My mind was not. The memories came in waves, unbidden and relentless. 4 years ago, Rachel came to visit not long after Margaret's funeral. The house still smelled like lilies from the service. I was sitting at this same desk, trying to organize life insurance paperwork, medical bills, endless forms that follow a death. Rachel sat across from me with a folder in her lap. She looked tired. She said she was worried about me living alone. She wanted to help. She slid a document across the desk. A durable power of attorney. She explained it would allow her to step in if I ever got sick or confused. Just a precaution. She said she loved me. I signed it without hesitation. I trusted her. She was my daughter. Margaret would have wanted me to take care of the family. I remember the way she smiled when I handed it back. She folded the paper neatly and put it in her purse. 3 years and 8 months ago, I noticed a transfer I did not remember authorizing. $1,200 had gone to an account with Rachel's name. I called her. She laughed light and easy. She said I had forgotten. She said I told her she could reimburse herself for the car repair. She said she took my car in for new brakes and transmission service while I was visiting Andrew. She said we talked about it twice. I did not remember any of that. I hung up and sat in the quiet for a long time. I felt a strange, hollow sensation in my chest. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was forgetting things. Margaret used to joke that I would forget my own head if it was not attached. Maybe my memory was slipping. I let it go. 3 years ago, the monthly transfers continued. $1,500 like clockwork. I finally asked Rachel about it during Thanksgiving dinner. She was setting the table. Lily was playing with a toy turkey in the corner. Rachel looked at me with wide, patient eyes. She said I had set up a college fund for Lily. She said we discussed it the previous Christmas. She said I wanted to make sure Lily had the same opportunities Andrew had. She said I insisted on $1,500 a month because that was what I used to save for Andrew's tuition. I stared at her across the table. I could not remember that conversation. I wanted to remember. But there was nothing. Just a blank space where the memory should have been. Rachel reached over and squeezed my hand. She told me it was okay. She told me memory lapses were normal at my age. She told me not to worry. I worried anyway, but I said nothing. 2 years ago, I had a fall. I broke my wrist and cracked 2 ribs. The pain medication made everything hazy. Rachel visited me in the hospital. She sat beside my bed and held my good hand. She said she was glad I had signed the power of attorney. She said if anything ever happened to me, she would be able to take care of everything. She brought papers for me to sign updates to my will, she said. I signed them. My head was foggy. I could barely read the words. She thanked me and kissed my forehead. When I got home a week later, I found a note on my kitchen counter in Rachel's handwriting. It said she had updated my banking information and made sure all the automatic transfers were still in place. It said she loved me. It said she was taking care of me the way Mom would have wanted. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at that note for an hour. Something felt wrong, but I could not name it. I was on pain medication. My memory was unreliable. Rachel said so. The doctors said so. Everyone said so. Tonight, sitting in my office with those old bank statements spread before me, I finally understood. It was not my memory. It was never my memory. Every time I questioned something, Rachel gave me an explanation that made me doubt myself. She made me feel confused. She made me feel old. She made me feel like I was losing my mind. And I believed her because she was my daughter, and I loved her. That is what people do when they gaslight you. They take your trust, and they twist it. They make you the problem. They make you question reality. And if you love them, you let them. I pressed my palms flat against the desk. My breath came shallow and fast. The pieces were falling into place. Rachel did not just manage my money. She was taking it, and she had been doing it for years. She had built a system. She had used my grief, my trust, my love. She had used the power of attorney I signed in good faith, and tonight she had tried to give me that pie. The pie with the rum glaze. The pie I could not eat because of my medication. The pie Garrett ate instead. The pie that made him collapse. I looked at the stack of statements on my desk. Then I looked at the dark window. My reflection stared back at me. I did not look old. I did not look confused. I looked like a man who had just woken up. If Rachel had lied about the money, what else had she lied about? And what would she do next if I started asking questions? The next morning, I woke up at the desk. My neck ached from the awkward angle. Pale winter light filtered through the blinds. I had not meant to fall asleep there, but exhaustion had claimed me sometime after 4. I stood and stretched, then walked to the kitchen to make coffee. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I poured the grounds into the filter and watched the machine drip dark liquid into the pot. The smell was familiar and comforting. I carried the mug back to the office. The file cabinet stood against the wall where it had been for 20 years. Margaret used to tease me about keeping everything in folders. She said I was old-fashioned. I told her paper did not crash like computers. I pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside were manila folders labeled in my handwriting. Tax returns, insurance policies, house deed, legal documents. I pulled out the legal documents folder and set it on the desk. My hands were steady, but my heart was not. The power of attorney was right on top. I lifted it out and set it under the lamp. The paper was 4 years old, but it looked new. I had only read it once before the day I signed it. Rachel had explained it in simple terms. She said it was a safety net. She said it meant she could help me if I ever got sick or confused. She made it sound like love. I believed her. This time I read every word. I went slowly. I read the preamble. I read the grants of authority. I read the section on financial powers. And then I found it. A paragraph in smaller print near the bottom of the second page. This durable power of attorney shall become effective only upon written certification by a licensed physician that the principal is no longer capable of managing his own financial affairs. I read it again, then a third time. My pulse quickened. The words did not change. The meaning was clear. The power of attorney was not active unless a doctor certified I was incapacitated. It was a safeguard, a protection. The kind of protection Margaret would have insisted on if she had been alive when I signed it. So how had Rachel been withdrawing money for 4 years? I set the paper down and pressed my palms against the desk. My mind raced. If the POA was not active, then Rachel had no legal authority to touch my accounts. Every transfer, every withdrawal, every dollar she took was unauthorized. It was not a misunderstanding. It was not a memory lapse. It was fraud. I looked up at the photograph on the corner of my desk. Margaret smiled back at me, frozen in time on our back porch in the summer sun. She wore her favorite yellow sundress. Her hair was silver, but her eyes were young. I remembered something else, too. A conversation we had near the end. Margaret was sitting in the armchair by the window. She was weak, but her voice was still strong. She had been watching Rachel during a visit. Rachel had asked me for money to fix her car. I gave it without question. After Rachel left, Margaret turned to me. "To us," she said quietly. Rachel has always felt entitled. She always thinks the world owes her something. Do not let your love blind you to who she really is. I had defended our daughter. I told Margaret that Rachel was just going through a hard time. I said she would grow out of it. Margaret gave me a sad smile. "I hope you are right. But promise me you will set boundaries. Promise me you will not let her take advantage of your kindness," I promised. But I never kept that promise. After Margaret died, I wanted to be close to Rachel. I wanted to hold on to what was left of our family. I thought giving her what she needed was the same as loving her. I thought trust was the same as loyalty. I was wrong. I reached out and touched the frame of Margaret's photograph. The glass was cool under my fingertips. "You were right, love," I said aloud. I should have listened. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Charles Freeman's number. Charles had been our real estate attorney when Margaret and I bought this house. He was honest and careful. I trusted him. I pressed the call button. He answered on the third ring. "He said warmly. "Good morning. What can I do for you?" "Charles," I said. My voice was steady. "I need to see you this afternoon. But before that, I am going to the bank. I need to know exactly how much Rachel has taken." There was a pause. Then Charles spoke again, his tone more serious. "Taken Douglas, what is going on?" I looked at the power of attorney lying under the lamp. "I will explain when I see you. Can you make time for me around 2 o'clock? I will clear my schedule," Charles said without hesitation. "I will be waiting." I hung up and set the phone down. Then I opened the text message thread with Andrew. My younger son had always been dependable. He was steady and loyal, just like his mother. I typed a message. "Do not say anything to Rachel, but I need your help. Something is very wrong. I will explain soon." Andrew replied almost immediately. "You are scaring me, Dad. Are you okay?" I typed back quickly. "I will be okay. Just trust me." Andrew sent back a thumbs-up emoji and 3 words. "I am here." I set the phone down and looked around the office. The power of attorney lay on the desk beside Margaret's photograph. The file cabinet stood open. The coffee mug sat half-empty beside my elbow. Everything looked normal. But nothing was normal anymore. I stood and walked to the closet. I pulled on my coat and picked up my keys. My hands were steady. My heart was not. In a few hours, I would know the truth. I would know how much Rachel had taken. I would know how deep the lies went. And I had a terrible feeling that once I knew there would be no going back. I glanced once more at Margaret's photograph. "Give me strength," I whispered. Then I walked out the door. The drive to the bank took 15 minutes. I barely noticed the roads. My hands gripped the steering wheel. My mind replayed the conversation with Charles. The power of attorney. The unsigned doctor's letter. The years of transfers. Everything pointed in one direction. But I needed proof. I needed numbers. At 9 o'clock, I walked into First Community Bank. The morning air was cold, but my resolve was colder. The lobby was quiet. A few customers stood at the teller windows. Linda Carmichael sat at a desk near the window. She was the bank representative who had helped me open my accounts years ago. She looked up when I approached. Her face brightened. "I'm Mr. Patterson," she said warmly. "Good morning. What brings you in today?" I sat down across from her desk. I did not return the smile. "Linda, I need to see the complete transaction history for all of my accounts, going back 4 years. Her smile faded. She studied my face. Is everything all right? I am not sure. That is why I need to see the records. Linda nodded slowly. She turned to her computer and began typing. The keyboard clicked. Her expression changed as she scrolled through the data. Her brow furrowed. She leaned closer to the monitor. Mr. Patterson, there are quite a few transfers here. She clicked the mouse a few more times. Then she turned to the printer. The machine hummed and began spitting out pages. 1 page, 5 pages, 10, 20. The stack grew thicker. Linda gathered the papers and handed them to me. The stack was at least 50 pages thick. You might want to sit back. This could take a minute. I took the papers. My hands were steady. I flipped to the first page and began reading. The entries were listed by date, account name, transaction type, amount, destination. I scanned down the list. My chest tightened. Year 1, $800 per month. 12 months. Automatic transfers to an account labeled Rachel Patterson. $9,600. Year 2, $1,200 per month. $14,400. Year 3, $1,500 per month. $18,000. Year 4, $1,800 per month. 8 months so far. $14,400. I flipped through more pages. There were other withdrawals too. Larger one-time amounts. $3,000 in March 2 years ago. $5,000 in July. Another $2,500 in October. $4,000 last spring. $14,500. I set the papers on Linda's desk. My hands were shaking now. I pressed them flat against the stack to steady them. $1,000, I said. Linda did not speak. She watched me with concern in her eyes. I looked up at her. Linda, these transfers were authorized under my power of attorney. But that power of attorney is only effective if a doctor certifies that I am incapacitated. I have never been diagnosed with anything. I have never been declared incompetent. Linda hesitated. Then she reached for a file folder on the corner of her desk. She opened it and pulled out a single sheet of paper. According to our records, we received this letter 18 months ago. She handed me a photocopy. I took it and held it under the desk lamp. The paper was standard letterhead. Dr. Alan Foster, M.D., Family Practice. The address was local. I knew that address. I had been going to Dr. Foster for 20 years. The letter was dated June 2022, 18 months ago, 6 months before my fall down the attic stairs. The heading read, Medical Certification of Incapacity. I read the body slowly. This is to certify that Mr. Douglas Patterson, D.O.B. redacted, is experiencing mild cognitive decline and memory impairment. He requires assistance in managing financial matters. It is my professional recommendation that his designated power of attorney be activated to ensure his safety and well-being. At the bottom was a signature. Dr. Alan Foster, M.D. I stared at the signature. It looked like his handwriting. The loops and slants matched the prescriptions he had written for me over the years. But something felt wrong. The ink was too dark. The pressure was too even. I had known Alan Foster for 2 decades. I had never complained of memory problems. I had never been tested for cognitive decline, and I certainly had never authorized him to write this letter. I looked up at Linda. Can I have a copy of this? Of course. Linda made a photocopy on the machine beside her desk and handed it to me. Mr. Patterson, if this certification is fraudulent, the bank will cooperate fully with any investigation. I stood. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to stay upright. Linda, please put a fraud alert on my accounts. No further transfers are to be made without my physical presence and identification. I will do that immediately. She was already typing. And Mr. Patterson, I am so sorry. I folded the bank statements and slid them into the envelope with the letter. I tucked the envelope under my arm. So am I. I walked out of the bank. The cold air hit my face. The sun was higher now, but it gave no warmth. I stood on the sidewalk and looked at the envelope in my hands. $71,000. A forged letter. And my daughter's name on every single transfer. I had one more stop to make before I met with Charles. I needed to know whether Dr. Foster had really written that letter. I needed to look him in the eye and ask him. I got in my car and pulled out my phone. I found Dr. Foster's office number and dialed. The receptionist answered on the second ring. Dr. Foster's office. How can I help you? This is Douglas Patterson. I need to see Dr. Foster today. It is urgent. There was a pause. Then the sound of pages turning. We have an opening at 11:30. Will that work? I checked the time. It was 9:45. I will be there. I hung up and started the engine. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was clear. In less than 2 hours, I would know the truth. And once I knew, there would be no going back. I drove straight from the bank to Dr. Foster's office. The medical building was on Maple Street, just 10 minutes away. I had been coming here for 20 years. The brick exterior was familiar. I pulled into a space near the entrance and sat for a moment with the engine running. My hands were still shaking. I looked down at the envelope on the passenger seat. $71,000, a forged letter. I took a deep breath and got out of the car. The waiting room was quiet. An elderly woman sat in the corner reading a magazine. The receptionist looked up when I walked in. She recognized me. Mr. Patterson, do you have an appointment? I shook my head. No, but I need to see Dr. Foster right away. It is urgent. She studied my face. Whatever she saw there made her pick up the phone. She spoke quietly into the receiver. Then she nodded. He will see you in just a few minutes. I sat down in one of the chairs by the window. 5 minutes passed. Then the door to the back hallway opened. Dr. Alan Foster stood there in his white coat. His hair was grayer than I remembered, but his eyes were sharp. Douglas, come on back. I followed him down the hallway to his office. He gestured to a chair and closed the door behind us. He sat down across from me and folded his hands on the desk. You look troubled. What is going on? I did not waste time. I pulled the photocopy of the letter from the envelope and handed it across the desk. Alan, I need you to look at this. Dr. Foster took the paper and adjusted his reading glasses. He scanned the heading. Then he began reading more slowly. His expression changed. His brow furrowed. He set the letter down and looked at me. Douglas, I did not write this. Are you sure? I am absolutely sure. First, I would never use the phrase mild cognitive decline without a full neurological workup. Second, this is not my letterhead. Third, he opened a drawer and pulled out a prescription pad. He signed his name on the top sheet and set it beside the forged letter. This signature looks similar, but it is not mine. I leaned forward. He pointed at the two signatures. Look at the loop on the F here. Mine is tighter, and the tail on the R here is too long. Whoever copied my signature did a decent job, but they missed the details. I stared at the two pieces of paper. My chest felt tight. Someone forged your signature. It appears so. Dr. Foster leaned back and studied me. Do you know who might have done this? I hesitated. Then I told him. I told him about Rachel, about the power of attorney, about the $71,000, about the transfers that had been going on for 4 years. Dr. Foster listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he said, 6 months ago, Rachel came to my office. She said she needed a copy of your medical records for insurance purposes. My heart sank, and you gave them to her. She had a signed HIPAA authorization form. It had your signature on it. Everything looked legitimate. I gave her a copy of your file. I remembered. Rachel had asked me to sign a form. She said it was so she could help me if I ever needed to go to the hospital. I signed it. I trusted her. She must have traced my signature from one of the documents in your file, Dr. Foster said. His voice was grim. Medical records contain a lot of signed forms. She would have had plenty of samples to work from. I pressed my hands against my knees. My daughter had planned this. She had obtained my medical records. She had studied Dr. Foster's signature. She had created a fake letter. She had used it to convince the bank to let her access my money. It was not impulsive. It was deliberate. It was fraud. Dr. Foster picked up a pen and pulled a sheet of his official letterhead from the drawer. "I'm going to write you a letter for your attorney." He wrote quickly and clearly. When he finished, he read it aloud. To whom it may concern. This letter confirms that the document dated June 2022, bearing my name, is not authentic. I did not write, authorize, or sign that certification. Mr. Douglas Patterson has been my patient for 20 years. His cognitive function is normal for his age. He does not require assistance in managing his affairs. He signed the letter at the bottom and pressed the office stamp beside his signature. Then he made a photocopy and handed both the original and the copy to me. "Keep the original for your records. Give the copy to your lawyer." I took the papers. My hands were steadier now. "Alan, thank you. This means everything." Dr. Foster stood and walked around the desk. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Douglas, if your daughter did this, you need to protect yourself. This is elder exploitation. It is a crime." I nodded. "I know. I am meeting with my attorney this afternoon." I stood and shook his hand. Then I walked back out. The cold air hit me again when I stepped outside. I got into my car and set the envelope on the passenger seat. Now I had 3 pieces of evidence: the bank statements, the forged letter, and Dr. Foster's written confirmation. My phone buzzed. A text message from Rachel. "Dad, we need to talk about your finances. It is urgent. Call me as soon as you can." I stared at the message. She did not know I had been to the bank. She did not know I had been to see Dr. Foster. But she was starting to worry. I set the phone on the seat beside the envelope. I did not reply. Let her worry. I checked the time. It was just after noon. I had 2 hours before my meeting with Charles Freeman. I put the car in gear and pulled out of the parking lot. The truth was no longer a question. It was a fact. And now I had to decide what to do with it. I did not call Rachel back. Instead, at 2 o'clock, I walked into Charles Freeman's office. It was on the 2nd floor of a red brick building downtown. Charles was waiting for me. His jacket was off. His sleeves were rolled up. When he saw my face, he knew immediately this was not a social visit. "Douglas, come in. Sit down." I sat across from his desk and set 3 envelopes in front of him. My hands were steady now. I had spent the last 2 hours preparing myself for this moment. Charles, I need you to look at these." He opened the first envelope. Bank statements. 50 pages of transfers. He scanned the numbers. His jaw tightened. He opened the second envelope. The forged letter from Dr. Foster. He read it slowly. Then he opened the third. Dr. Foster's signed statement confirming the forgery. Charles set all 3 documents on his desk and leaned back in his chair. "Douglas, this is elder financial exploitation. Your daughter has been systematically defrauding you for 4 years. I nodded. My throat felt tight. "Can I get the money back?" "Yes, and more than that. Forging a doctor's signature is a felony. This could lead to criminal charges." I swallowed hard. Criminal charges. My daughter. I thought of Margaret. I thought of Rachel as a little girl sitting on my shoulders at the county fair laughing. Then I thought of Garrett collapsing at the Christmas table. I thought of $71,000 disappearing while I blamed my own memory. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the Ziploc bag. I set it on the desk. Charles looked at it. What is this? The night this all started, Rachel made an apple pie. She insisted I eat it. I refused because of my blood pressure medication. My son-in-law ate it instead. 15 minutes later, he could barely stand or speak. Charles picked up the bag carefully. He held it up to the light. You think it was laced with something? I need to know for sure. Charles set the bag down and picked up his phone. He dialed a number and put the call on speaker. This is Charles Freeman. I need to send a food sample for toxicology analysis. Suspected adulteration. How soon can you process it? A woman's voice came through. Professional. Brisk. If you send it today by courier, we can have preliminary results in 5 to 7 business days. Full panel takes 2 weeks. Send the courier, bill my office. He hung up and looked at me. Will it still be valid after being frozen? Yes. In fact, freezing preserves evidence better than refrigeration. If there is something in this pie, we will find it. He stood and walked to a cabinet. He pulled out a cardboard evidence box and a label. He placed the Ziploc bag inside the box and sealed it with tape. Then he wrote on the label in black marker, Evidence, Toxicology Analysis. He set the box by the door. The courier will pick it up within the hour. He sat back down and pulled a yellow legal pad toward him. He began writing. First, we need to revoke the power of attorney immediately. I will draft the document today. Should I confront Rachel? Charles stopped writing and looked up. Not yet. If she knows you are investigating, she might destroy evidence or leave town. We wait for the toxicology results. Then we set a trap. A trap. Charles nodded. We arrange a meeting. You, Rachel, maybe Garrett. You ask her directly about the money. You record the conversation. Video if possible. Liars often confess when cornered, especially to family. If she admits to anything, we have her on tape. I thought about that. The idea of sitting across from Rachel with a hidden camera felt wrong. But then I thought about the forged letter. The fake doctor's signature. The $71,000. She had been lying to my face for 4 years. All right, we do it your way. Charles pulled a document from a folder on his desk. It was already typed. I prepared this after your call this morning. Revocation of durable power of attorney. He slid it across the desk. I read it. The language was clear and formal. It stated that I, Douglas Patterson, was revoking all authority previously granted to Rachel Patterson under the power of attorney dated 4 years prior. It stated that I was of sound mind and acting of my own free will. I picked up the pen Charles handed me. I signed my name at the bottom. Charles signed as witness and pressed his notary seal beside my signature. I will send copies to the bank, the hospital, and Rachel. Certified mail. She will have to sign for it. How long before she knows? 2 to 3 days. Use that time wisely. I stood. Charles stood too. He walked around the desk and faced me. Douglas, once we start this, there is no going back. This will destroy your relationship with Rachel. Maybe permanently. Are you prepared for that? I looked out the window. The winter sun was low in the sky. The light was fading. Why not, Charles? If I do not do this, she will destroy me first. And she will not stop. Next, it might be Andrew. Or even Lily when she grows up. Charles nodded slowly. Then we move forward. I turned back to him. My family was already destroyed the moment Rachel chose greed over love. Charles extended his hand. I shook it. I will call you when the toxicology results come in. In the meantime, act normal. Do not let her know anything has changed. I picked up the empty envelopes from his desk. I left the documents with him. Evidence, Proof. The foundation of whatever came next. I walked out of Charles's office as the winter sun was setting. The sky was the color of bruised plums. Somewhere in this town, my daughter was going about her day, unaware that the walls were closing in. Part of me felt like a traitor, but the other part, the part that remembered Garrett collapsing, the part that saw $71,000 vanish, that part felt something else entirely. Justice. Over the next week, I moved in silence. No calls to Rachel. No explanations. Just quiet, deliberate action. The morning after my meeting with Charles, I called Linda Carmichael at the bank. Linda, I said, I need to cancel all automatic transfers associated with Rachel Patterson. I will do that right now, Mr. Patterson, she said. And, I continued, I need you to require my physical presence and photo identification for any future account changes. No authorizations by phone, no exceptions. Understood, Linda said. Your accounts are now fully protected. I hung up and logged into my online banking. I changed every password. I enabled two-factor authentication. I did everything Charles had told me to do. Then I sat back and waited. Rachel called on the third day. I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee when my phone buzzed. Her name appeared on the screen. I stared at it. The phone rang 4 times. Then it went to voicemail. I set the phone down and took another sip of coffee. An hour later, she left a message. I listened to it on speaker. Dad, it is me. Call me back when you get this. Her voice was light, casual, as if nothing was wrong. I deleted the message. The next day, she texted, and Dad, why are you not answering? I need to talk to you. I did not reply. The day after that, another text. Dad, there is something wrong with my account. The transfer did not go through. Can you check on that? I turned off my phone and left it on the counter. When I turned it back on an hour later, there were 2 more messages. Dad, this is not funny. Call me right now. I showed the message to no one. I did not respond. I wanted her to feel what I had felt. Confusion, doubt, fear. Andrew texted me that evening. Dad, Rachel keeps asking me if I have talked to you. What is going on? I replied carefully. Do not tell her anything. I will explain soon. Just trust me. Andrew wrote back immediately. Okay, but you are worrying me. Everything will be clear in a few days, I typed. I set the phone down and looked around the empty house. Margaret's photograph sat on the mantel. The Christmas tree was still up, though the lights were off. The house felt hollow, but I was not alone. I had Andrew. I had Charles. I had the truth. On the 6th day, Rachel called 5 times in 2 hours. I let every call go to voicemail. The last message she left was different. Her voice shook, not with sadness, with anger. I do not know what you are thinking, but you are making a huge mistake. You need me, Dad. You cannot manage without me. Call me back before you do something you will regret. I played the message twice, then I saved it. Evidence. Her words did not hurt me the way they used to. They did not make me doubt myself. They made me see her more clearly. She was not worried about me. She was worried about losing control. She was panicking. Good. Let her panic. Let her wonder. Let her feel a fraction of the fear I had lived with since Christmas night. On the 7th day, my phone rang. It was Charles. Douglas, he said. The toxicology results are in. I sat up straight. Already, I asked. You said 5 to 7 days. They prioritized it, Charles said. Can you come to my office? I stood and reached for my coat. I will be there in 20 minutes, I said. I hung up and walked to the closet. My hands were steady. My heart was not. This was it. The final piece of evidence. If the pie contained something it should not, then Rachel had not just stolen from me. She had tried to harm me, and she had harmed Garrett instead. I grabbed my keys and walked out to the car. Snow had started falling early that morning. The first snow of January. The roads were slick, but I drove carefully. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Rachel again. I silenced it without looking. 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, I would know. And once I knew, the trap would be set. I would confront Rachel. I would record every word. And if she admitted what she had done, I would take that recording to the police. The windshield wipers swept back and forth across the glass. The snow fell harder. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel and kept driving. On January 3rd, I sat in Charles's office for the second time in a week. He pushed a manila folder across the desk. The logo of the laboratory was stamped in the corner. Midwest Forensic Lab. My hands were steady when I opened it. The first page was a cover sheet. Client name, case number, date received. I flipped to the second page. The header read, Toxicology Analysis Report. Sample food specimen apple pie, submitted December 27, 2023. Results diazepam detected. 30 milligrams per serving. I read the line twice. 30 milligrams. I did not know what that meant. I looked up at Charles. What is diazepam? I asked. Charles leaned forward. It is a sedative, he said. Commonly prescribed for anxiety. 30 milligrams is a very high dose. It can cause drowsiness, confusion, slurred speech, loss of coordination. When combined with alcohol or certain medications, especially blood pressure medication, the effects are intensified. It can be dangerous. I set the report down. My chest felt tight. What would have happened if I had eaten it? I asked. Charles did not hesitate. With the blood pressure medication you take. At best, you would have appeared confused and disoriented. Exactly the symptoms Rachel could use to claim you needed help. At worst. He paused. It could have caused a serious medical emergency. Falls, loss of consciousness, respiratory distress. I thought of Garrett stumbling at the table, his fork clattering to the floor, his eyes glazing over. That had been meant for me. Rachel had made that pie for me. She had insisted I eat it. If I had not refused, if I had not been cautious about the rum glaze, I would have been the one collapsing. And Rachel would have been there to call the ambulance, to tell the doctors I was confused, to use it as proof that I needed her help. Douglas, Charles said quietly. This confirms it. Your daughter did not just steal from you. She tried to harm you. I nodded. I could not speak. Charles pulled out a yellow legal pad and a pen. Now we set the trap, he said. You invite Rachel to your house. Tell her you want to discuss finances. Act like you are ready to talk. And then, I asked. You confront her, Charles said. But here is the key. You need hidden cameras. You need a witness in the next room. You let her talk. Liars often confess when cornered, especially to family. If she admits anything, we have it on tape. I stared at him. You want me to record my own daughter, I said. I want you to protect yourself, Charles said. And to get justice. I thought about that. Then I nodded. All right, I said. How do we do this? Charles stood. Do you have someone you trust? Someone who can help you set up the equipment? Mom. I thought for a moment. Then I remembered. Henry Walsh, I said. My neighbor. He is a retired police officer. Charles smiled. Perfect, he said. Call him. I left Charles's office and drove home. When I got there, I dialed Henry's number. Henry, I said when he answered. Are you free this Saturday? For you, Doug, always. What is going on? But I cannot explain over the phone, I said. Can you come by tonight? I will be there in an hour, Henry said. That evening, Henry sat in my kitchen while I laid out the evidence. The bank statements, the the forged letter, the toxicology report. He read everything in silence. When he finished, he looked up at me. His face was grim. "Douglas," he said, "this is attempted harm and financial exploitation. You need to go to the police." "I will," I said. "But first I need her confession. Will you help me?" Henry did not hesitate. "You know I will," he said. "I still have my surveillance equipment from my consulting work. I will bring it over." The next morning I called Andrew. I asked him to come to the house. When he arrived, I handed him the same documents I had shown Henry. He read the toxicology report first. His face went pale. "Dad," he said, his voice cracked. "Rachel did this. She tried to hurt you." "I am afraid so, son," I said. Andrew sat down heavily in the chair. He covered his face with his hands. "I cannot believe this," he said. "She is my sister." "I know this is hard," I said. "But I need you there, as a witness." Andrew looked up. His eyes were red. "I will be there, Dad," he said. "I will do whatever you need." I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Rachel. "Rachel, you are right. We need to talk about finances. Come to the house Saturday evening at 7, just you and Garrett." I pressed send. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed with her reply. "Finally, we will be there." I stared at the word. Finally. As if she had been waiting for me to give in. As if she thought she had won. On Saturday afternoon, Henry arrived with a duffel bag. He pulled out 2 small cameras. One was mounted on a wide-angle lens. The other was the size of a matchbox. He set the first camera on top of the bookshelf, angled to capture the entire living room. He hid the second camera behind a picture frame on the side table. "Audio?" I asked. Henry nodded. "Crystal clear," he said. "I tested it this morning." Andrew arrived an hour later. He set up his phone on the desk in the study, ready to record audio as a backup. Then he and Henry retreated to the guest room next to the living room. The door would stay open a crack. They would hear everything. I sat in the armchair facing the front door. The cameras were invisible. The microphones were silent. Everything was ready. Saturday came slowly. The hours dragged like tar. I cleaned the house. I made coffee. I rehearsed what I would say. By 6 o'clock, the cameras were hidden. Andrew and Henry were in the next room, and I was sitting in the armchair waiting. At 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. The doorbell just rang. Rachel and Garrett are about to walk into Douglas's trap. Before we see what happens next, I want to ask you if you were in Douglas's position. Would you confront your own daughter like this? Or would you have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Please note the following story contains some fictional elements and may not reflect actual events. If you'd prefer not to continue, feel free to pause here and explore other content. Otherwise, the confrontation ahead may be intense. Let's continue together. The doorbell rang at 7. I stood, smoothed my shirt, and walked to the door. Through the peephole, I saw Rachel and Garrett standing on the porch. Rachel's face was tight with anger. Her arms were crossed. Garrett stood half a step behind her, his shoulders hunched. He looked worried. I took a breath, steadied myself, and opened the door. Rachel stepped inside without a word. No hello. No hug. She walked past me into the living room as if she owned the place. Her voice was sharp when she turned around. "Dad, what is going on? Why did you freeze the accounts?" Garrett followed her in slowly. He gave me a small, apologetic nod. I closed the door and gestured to the couch. "Hello, Rachel. Hello, Garrett. Please sit down." Rachel did not sit. She stood in the middle of the room with her hands on her hips. "I do not want to sit down. I want answers." Garrett hovered near the couch, unsure. I walked calmly to the armchair and sat down. I folded my hands in my lap and looked at Rachel. "Then let us talk. Rachel, when was the last time you checked your automatic transfers? Rachel's jaw tightened. And that is what I am trying to ask you. They are not working anymore. The bank said you canceled them. I did. Her face flushed red. Why that money was for Lily's education, you promised. I kept my voice calm, measured. Did I promise Rachel, or did you tell me I promised? Rachel froze. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. For a moment she looked confused. Then the anger returned. What? What are you talking about? I leaned forward slightly. I am talking about 4 years of you telling me I said things I do not remember saying. 4 years of you making me doubt my own mind. Rachel's voice shook. Dad, you are not making any sense. Are you feeling all right? There it was. The gaslighting. Right on cue. She was doing it again. Turning it back on me. Making me the problem. But this time I was ready. I did not answer her question. I just watched her. She shifted her weight. Her eyes darted to Garrett, then back to me. Garrett cleared his throat softly. Rachel, maybe we should. Rachel whipped around. Be quiet, Garrett. Garrett flinched. He took a step back and looked at the floor. I saw his hands clench at his sides. He was uncomfortable, maybe even scared. I stood up slowly and walked to the coffee table. I had prepared everything earlier. The folder, the documents, the proof. I picked up the folder and opened it. I pulled out the first document, the bank statements, 50 pages thick. I set them on the coffee table in front of Rachel. I went to the bank, Rachel. I reviewed the statements. $71,000. Transferred into your account over the past 4 years. Rachel stared at the papers. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. Finally, she found her voice. You gave me that money, Dad, for emergencies, for Lily. Did I? Because I do not remember authorizing that much. Rachel's voice rose again, louder this time. You did. You just do not remember. That is the problem, Dad. You are forgetting things. I pulled out the second document, the forged letter from Dr. Foster. I set it on top of the bank statements, then explained this. Rachel looked down at the letter. Her eyes widened. She reached out with a shaking hand and picked it up. She read the heading. Her lips moved as she scanned the words. Then she set it down quickly, as if it had burned her. A letter stating that I have cognitive decline, signed by Dr. Foster. Rachel looked up at me. Her face was a mask of confusion. Or was it panic? Where did you get that? From the bank. They said you submitted it to activate the power of attorney. Rachel's expression shifted. I could see her mind working. She was trying to think, trying to find a way out. I did not. Dr. Foster wrote that, not me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the third document, Dr. Foster's letter of confirmation. I unfolded it and held it up. I spoke to Dr. Foster. He told me he never wrote it. The signature is forged. He gave me this letter confirming it. Rachel stared at the paper in my hand. Her face drained of color. She took a step back. That is impossible, she whispered. Garrett turned to look at her. His face was full of confusion and something else. Suspicion. Rachel, you told me the doctor really said your dad was having memory problems. You said the doctor wrote a letter. Rachel turned on him. I said be quiet, she screamed. Garrett flinched. He stepped back. But this time he did not look away. He stared at Rachel. And I could see the doubt forming in his eyes. He was starting to understand. His wife had lied to him. I set the letter down on the coffee table next to the others. The evidence was piled there now. Undeniable. Ugly. True. I did not raise my voice. I kept my tone cold and even. You lied to the bank. You forged a doctor's signature. You stole money from me for years, and you made me think I was losing my mind. Rachel's face turned red. Her whole body was shaking. Her hands balled into fists. I did not steal. That money would have been mine anyway. You were sitting on this massive pile of money and not doing anything with it. There it was. The truth. Not hidden anymore. Not disguised. Just raw and ugly and real. So you felt entitled to take it. Rachel was almost crying now. But it was not sadness. It was rage. Yes. You gave Andrew everything. You love him more. You always have. What about me? What about my daughter? I looked at her. For a moment I saw the little girl she used to be. The girl who wanted to be first. The girl who thought the world owed her something. Margaret had seen it. She had warned me. I had not listened. I loved you, Rachel. I would have helped you if you had asked. But you did not ask. You just took. And you tried to destroy me to do it. Rachel's voice cracked. I did not try to destroy you. I took a breath. What about Christmas night? The room went silent. The anger on Rachel's face vanished. In its place was something else. Panic. Raw, undeniable panic. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. Garrett looked back and forth between us. His face was full of confusion. What happened on Christmas night? Rachel did not answer. She was staring at me. Her chest was rising and falling rapidly. Her hands were trembling. And I could see the exact moment she realized the truth. I knew. I reached for the white envelope on the coffee table. My hands were steady. Inside was the toxicology report. I had carried it like a weight for days. Now it was time. I pulled the paper out and held it up. Ma, this is a report from the forensic lab, Rachel. From the apple pie you made on Christmas night. Rachel's voice cracked. What? Why would you test my pie? Because Garrett ate it. And 15 minutes later, he could barely stand or speak. Garrett turned to look at his wife. His face was pale. What is he talking about? I looked down at the report and read aloud. The pie contained 30 milligrams of diazepam, a sedative, enough to cause confusion, drowsiness, slurred speech, enough to make a person look incapacitated. I looked up at Rachel. Shactinium. The lab report also notes that when combined with certain medications, particularly blood pressure medication, diazepam can cause severe respiratory depression, loss of consciousness, even cardiac arrest. I take blood pressure medication, Rachel. If I had eaten that pie, I might not have woken up. Rachel's face drained of color. She pressed herself against the wall. Her breathing was rapid and shallow. No. Someone must have... I looked at her steadily. Who made that pie, Rachel? Rachel's voice shook. I did, but I did not. I would never. Garrett stood up abruptly. His voice was loud. Wait, you put something in the pie. Rachel shook her head frantically. No, I did not. Garrett's hands were shaking now. His voice rose. I ate that pie. You made it for your dad. You kept insisting he eat it. You said it was special. You said he had to try it. He turned to look at me. But you refused. You said you could not have the rum because of your medication. So you gave me your slice instead. I nodded slowly. The memory was clear now. Sharp. I did. I thought I was being polite. I did not want the pie to go to waste. I did not know. Garrett turned back to Rachel. His face was white. You tried to stop him. I remember now. You said, Dad, just one bite, it is fine. You reached for the plate. You tried to take it back. But he had already handed it to me. Rachel opened her mouth. No words came out. She just stared at Garrett. Garrett took a step toward her. It was meant for him. The pie was meant for your father, and I ate it instead. His voice cracked. I could barely walk. My hands would not work. I could not talk right. I thought I was having a stroke. I thought I was dying. He stopped. His chest was heaving. And you just stood there. You watched me stumble. You did not call an ambulance. You said I just had too much wine. You said I needed to lie down. Rachel was crying now, but she did not speak. Garrett's voice dropped to a whisper. You were going to let me suffer, because you could not admit what you had done. Because if you called for help, they would test me. They would find the drug, and then everyone would know. Rachel finally found her voice. It was barely audible. I did not know you were going to eat it. It was not supposed to be you. Garrett stared at her. His face was a mixture of shock and rage. So it is okay that it was meant for your father. That makes it better. Rachel was sobbing now. Her hands covered her face. I was not trying to really hurt anyone. I just needed him to look unwell. Just for one night. I kept my voice steady. So a doctor could certify it. So you could activate the power of attorney. Rachel's words tumbled out between sobs. I was desperate. We owed so much money. The mortgage, the credit cards, Lily's tuition. I did not have any other choice. You always had a choice. You could have asked me for help. Rachel's face twisted. The tears kept falling, but her voice rose. It was not sadness anymore. It was rage. Pure, raw rage. You are just a soulless corpse sitting on a pile of money, she screamed. You are not doing anything with it. You just sit there and watch us drown. Andrew gets whatever he wants because you love him more. What about me? What about your daughter? Her voice echoed in the room. The words hung in the air like poison. I felt something break inside my chest. I saw the little girl who used to climb into my lap. The girl who used to ask me to read her stories before bed. The girl Margaret and I had raised. She was gone. In her place was this stranger. This person who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle. A corpse sitting on money. I took a slow breath. My hands clenched at my sides. But I kept my voice calm. I loved you, Rachel. I gave you everything I could. But love does not mean you have the right to destroy me. Garrett collapsed onto the couch. He buried his face in his hands. This is insane, Rachel. How could you do this? Rachel whirled on him. Do not pretend to be innocent. You helped me. You said we had no other choice. Garrett's head snapped up. So I did not know you were going to drug him, I thought. I thought you were just going to talk to a lawyer. Rachel's voice was shrill. Like you knew everything. Do not try to put this all on me. Garrett stood up. His voice was desperate now. I knew you wanted control of his money. I did not know you were going to forge documents. I did not know you were going to drug his food. Rachel screamed back at him. You liar, you helped me figure out how much diazepam to use, Sokusum. Garrett's face went white. Because you told me it was just to help him sleep. You said he was having insomnia. I had heard enough. I stood up slowly. My heart was breaking, but my voice was steady. Both of you? Stop! They both turned to look at me. They were breathing hard. Rachel's face was streaked with tears and mascara. Garrett looked like he might be sick. You have said enough. Rachel wiped her face with the back of her hand. Her voice was hoarse. Dad, I held up my hand. No, I do not want to hear it anymore. I looked at Rachel, then at Garrett. My daughter and her husband, the people I had trusted, the people I had loved. You want to know why I did not just give you the money, Rachel, why I protect what is mine. Rachel stared at me. She did not answer. I turned and walked slowly toward the hallway. My legs felt heavy. My chest ached. But I kept walking. Let me show you exactly why. I stepped toward the hallway. Rachel's eyes followed me, confusion mixing with dread. Dad, what are you? She stopped mid-sentence. because Andrew stepped out from behind the doorway. His phone was still in his hand. The recording icon blinked red. "Rachel," Andrew said quietly. His voice trembled. "I heard everything." Rachel's face went white. "Andrew," she whispered. "Every word, from the moment you walked in. Dad asked me to record it, and I did." Rachel's eyes darted to me, then back to Andrew. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Garrett stood up slowly. "Andrew, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Andrew said. His voice was steady now. "You drugged our father. You stole from him for 4 years. You forged a doctor's letter. And you tried to gaslight him into thinking he was losing his mind." Rachel's legs seemed to buckle. She grabbed the arm of the sofa. "Andrew, please." "I'm not the only one who heard it," I said. I turned toward the hallway. Henry Walsh stepped into the room. He was holding a small handheld camera. The red recording light was still on. "Mr. Patterson," Henry said, nodding at me. Then he looked at Rachel. "Mrs. Patterson, Mr. Phillips, I'm a licensed private investigator, and I've been recording this conversation from the next room. Video and audio." Rachel's face crumpled. "No," she whispered. No. There were also 2 hidden cameras," Henry continued. "One on the bookshelf, one above the doorframe. All footage is time-stamped and legally admissible." Rachel turned to me. Her eyes were wild. "You set me up," she breathed. "I gave you a chance to tell the truth. You chose to lie." Rachel's knees hit the floor. She was crying now, hard, broken sobs.
"Dad, please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry."
"You're sorry you got caught." "No," she screamed. "I'm sorry I hurt you. I was desperate, Dad. I was drowning. You had choices. You could have asked me for help. You could have told me the truth. Instead, you drugged me. You stole from me. You forged documents. You manipulated me for 4 years." Rachel reached for me, her hands shaking. "Dad, I know I messed up, I know, but please think about Lily. She's 7 years old. If you call the police, she'll lose her mother. Is that what you want?" The mention of Lily hit me like a knife. I closed my eyes. Margaret's face flickered in my mind. Her voice soft but firm. "Protect yourself, Doug. And protect the people who can't protect themselves." I opened my eyes. "I've already thought about Lily. I've thought about her every day since I found out what you did. And you're right, she's 7 years old. She's innocent. And she deserves better than a mother who drugs her own father." Rachel's face twisted. "You bastard!" "I've arranged for Lily to stay with Andrew and Sarah, temporarily, until the court decides what's best for her." Rachel let out a sound I'd never heard before, a guttural, animalistic wail. "You can't take her from me." "I'm not taking her. You did this to yourself." Garrett stepped forward. His face was pale, but his voice was calm. "Mr. Patterson, I know what Rachel did was wrong, and I know I should have stopped her. But I'm willing to cooperate. I'll testify. I'll tell the police everything. Just please give us a chance to make this right." I looked at him. For a moment I almost believed him. But then I remembered the lie he'd told on Christmas night. The way he'd covered for Rachel. The way he'd eaten that pie and pretended everything was fine. "You had 4 years to make it right. You chose not to." There was a knock at the door. Rachel's head whipped around. "No," she whispered. "No, Dad, please." I walked to the door and opened it. Officer Michael Brennan stood on the porch. He was in full uniform. Behind him was another officer, a younger woman with a notepad. "Mr. Patterson, we got your call." I nodded. "Come in." Brennan stepped inside. His eyes scanned the room. Rachel on the floor, Garrett standing frozen, Andrew by the hallway, Henry with the camera. "So, Ms. Patterson, Mr. Phillips? I'm Officer Brennan with the County Sheriff's Department. We need to talk." Rachel scrambled to her feet. "This is a mistake. My father is confused. He doesn't know what he's saying. Ma'am, I'd advise you to remain silent. I stepped forward and handed Brennan the large envelope I'd been holding. This contains all the evidence. Bank statements showing $71,000 in unauthorized transfers over 4 years. A forged letter from my doctor claiming I had cognitive impairment. A toxicology report showing that a pie my daughter baked for me contained 30 milligrams of diazepam. And a letter from Dr. Alan Foster confirming that he never wrote or signed the document in question. Brennan opened the envelope and flipped through the papers. His expression remained neutral, but I saw his jaw tighten. "Henry," I said. Henry stepped forward and handed Brennan a USB drive. This contains the full video and audio recording of tonight's conversation. Ms. Patterson admitted to forging the power of attorney activation letter, transferring money without authorization, and drugging Mr. Patterson on Christmas Eve. Brennan took the USB and nodded. This is substantial evidence. He looked at Rachel. Ms. Patterson, you're under arrest for elder financial exploitation forgery and conspiracy to endanger. Rachel's eyes went wide. What? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. No, Rachel screamed. You can't do this. Dad, tell them you're okay. Brennan pulled out handcuffs. Ma'am, put your hands behind your back. Rachel looked at me one last time. Her face was streaked with tears and mascara. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I'm your daughter. I know, I said, my voice cracked. And I loved you more than anything in this world. But you tried to destroy me. Brennan cuffed her wrists. The click of the metal echoed in the silent room. Mr. Phillips, you're also under arrest as an accessory. Garrett didn't resist. He held out his hands and let the second officer cuff him. As they led Rachel toward the door, she turned back one last time. Her face was no longer sad. It was pure rage. When I hate you, I hate you. You selfish old man, that money should have been mine. You're just a corpse sitting on a pile of gold. The door slammed shut, and then silence. I stood there staring at the empty space where my daughter had been. My legs gave out. I sank into the armchair. Andrew was at my side in an instant. He wrapped his arms around me. Dad, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I couldn't speak. I just cried. Henry turned off the camera. He set it down quietly on the table. You did the right thing, Mr. Patterson. I nodded. But it didn't feel right. It felt like the end of everything. The days after Rachel's arrest passed in a blur. I moved through the house like a ghost, making coffee, answering calls from Charles, staring out the window at the falling snow. Andrew stayed with me. He slept on the couch and made sure I ate. I don't think I could have survived those days without him. The house felt emptier than it ever had. Not just because Rachel was gone, but because the illusion of family had shattered. For 4 years, I had believed I was being cared for. I had believed my daughter loved me. Now I knew the truth, and it was almost too much to bear. On the morning of January 17th, Charles called. Douglas, he said. Garrett Phillips has agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. He's going to testify against Rachel in exchange for a reduced sentence. I sat down at the kitchen table. Andrew looked up from his laptop. What about the charges against him? I asked. He'll likely plead guilty to a lesser charge accessory to elder financial exploitation, Charles said. Probably probation, or maybe a year in a minimum security facility. But he won't face the same charges Rachel does. I closed my eyes. And Rachel, Charles's voice was grim. Multiple felony counts. If convicted, she's looking at 5 to 10 years. 10 years. Lily would be 17 by the time her mother got out. Thank you, Charles, I said quietly. I hung up. Andrew was watching me. Dad, Garrett's testifying against Rachel, I said. She's going to prison. Andrew nodded slowly. He didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say. 3 days later, Garrett called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Patterson, Garrett said. His voice was shaking. I'm sorry. I should have stopped her. I was a coward. Yes, I said. You were. There was a long silence. I'm filing for divorce, Garrett said. And I'm giving up custody of Lily. I can't take care of her from where I'm going. And Rachel, his voice cracked. I don't know when she'll be out. My chest tightened. What's going to happen to Lily? Foster care, Garrett said. Unless someone in the family. I didn't say anything. I know I have no right to ask, Garrett continued. But she loves you. You're the only stable thing in her life right now. I stared at the table. Mr. Patterson, I heard you, I said. I hung up. Andrew was standing in the doorway. Dad, what did he say? I looked at him. Lily's going into foster care. Unless I take her. Andrew's eyes widened. What are you going to do? I looked out the window. Snow was falling again. The backyard looked like a painting, pristine, untouched, beautiful. She's 7 years old, Andrew, I said. She didn't choose this. She doesn't deserve to be punished for her mother's sins. Dad, are you sure after everything Rachel did? That's exactly why I have to do this, I said. Someone needs to show that little girl what real love looks like. Love with boundaries. Love with integrity. Andrew sat down next to me. He put his hand on my shoulder. Then we'll do it together, he said. On January 25th, I went to the Department of Child Services. I filled out the paperwork for temporary guardianship. The social worker, a kind woman in her 40s named Ms. Torres, reviewed my application carefully. Mr. Patterson, she said, we'll need to do a home inspection and a background check. Given your age, I'm 58, I said. I'm in good health. And I have my son living with me to help. Ms. Torres nodded. We'll process this as quickly as we can. 2 weeks later, on a gray afternoon in early February, Miss Torres brought Lily to the house. The little girl stood on the porch, clutching a small backpack and a stuffed bear. Her eyes were red and swollen. Lily, Ms. Torres said gently, this is your grandfather's house. You're going to stay here for a while. Lily looked up at me. Grandpa, I knelt down so I was at her level. Hi, sweetheart. Lily's lip trembled. Where's Mommy? They said she did something really bad. My heart broke. I opened my arms, and Lily collapsed into them. She sobbed against my shoulder, hard, choking sobs that shook her whole body. Your mom made some mistakes, Lily, I said softly. Big mistakes. But you didn't do anything wrong. You're safe now. I promise. I want my mommy, Lily cried. I know, sweetheart, I whispered. I know. I held her until the sobs slowed. Ms. Torres stood quietly by the door, giving us space. Andrew came down the stairs. He crouched next to Lily and smiled. Hey, kiddo, remember me? I'm your Uncle Andrew. Lily looked at him through her tears and nodded. I've got your room all set up, Andrew said. Do you want to see it? Lily nodded again. Andrew took her hand and led her upstairs. Ms. Torres gave me a small, sad smile. You're doing a good thing, Mr. Patterson. I hope so, I said. A few days later, I received a letter from the county jail. The handwriting was messy, almost childish. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I was drowning in debt and I panicked. Please forgive me. Please don't take Lily away from me. She's all I have. I'll do anything. Please, Dad, I'm your daughter. Don't abandon me. Rachel. I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it down on the table and stared at it for a long time. Andrew came into the kitchen. Is that from her? I nodded. Are you going to write back? I don't know, I said. Not yet. I'm not ready. Andrew picked up the letter and read it. Then he set it back down. She's still trying to manipulate you, he said quietly. I know. But you're still thinking about forgiving her. I looked at him. She's my daughter, Andrew. No matter what she did, she's still my daughter. Andrew didn't say anything. He just put his hand on my shoulder. That night, I tucked Lily into bed in the guest room, the same room Andrew had slept in when he was a boy. She clutched her stuffed bear tightly. "Grandpa." "Yes, sweetheart." "What, will I ever see Mommy again?" I smoothed her hair. "Someday, honey, when you're ready." I didn't tell her that I didn't know when or if that day would ever come. For now, all I could do was give her something Rachel never had, a safe place to heal. 2 weeks after Rachel's arrest on a cold Tuesday morning in late January, Janet Richardson from Adult Protective Services knocked on my door. I'd been expecting this. Rachel had filed a report against me just before her arrest, a final desperate attempt to discredit me as incompetent. I opened the door. A woman in her 50s stood on the porch. She wore a navy blazer and carried a leather briefcase. Her expression was neutral, professional. "Mr. Patterson," she said, "I'm Janet Richardson from APS. We received a report concerning your welfare." "Let me guess," I said, "from my daughter." Janet's face didn't change. "I can't disclose the source, but the report alleges that you're self-neglecting, living in unsafe conditions, and potentially suffering from cognitive impairment." I smiled, though it felt tired. "Of course it does. Come in, Ms. Richardson. I have nothing to hide." Janet stepped inside and looked around. The house was clean. The floors were swept. The kitchen counters were clear. There were no piles of clutter, no signs of neglect. She walked through the living room, the kitchen, the hallway. She opened the refrigerator. It was stocked with fresh vegetables, milk, eggs, bread. "Mr. Patterson," she said, closing the fridge, "your home is well maintained." "Thank you," I said. "I've been taking care of myself for 6 years, ever since my wife passed." Janet pulled out a clipboard. "Can you walk me through your daily routine?" I sat down at the kitchen table. She sat across from me. "I wake up at 7, I said. "I make breakfast, usually oatmeal or eggs. I read the newspaper. I volunteer at the community center twice a week. I manage my own finances, pay my bills on time, and attend all my medical appointments." "Who is your primary care physician?" "Dr. Alan Foster," I said. "I've been his patient for 20 years. "And has he ever expressed concerns about your cognitive abilities?" "No," I said. "In fact, I have a letter from him confirming the opposite." Janet made a note. "Mr. Patterson, do you live alone?" "Not anymore," I said. "My son Andrew is staying with me, and as of 2 weeks ago, my granddaughter Lily moved in as well." Janet looked up. "Your granddaughter?" "Yes. She's 7. Her mother, my daughter Rachel, was recently arrested. I've been granted temporary guardianship." Janet's pen paused. "Arrested, Daudio?" I nodded. "For elder financial exploitation, forgery, and conspiracy to endanger, against me." Janet set down her clipboard. "Mr. Patterson, are you saying the person who filed this report is the same person who was arrested for exploiting you?" "Yes." Janet's expression shifted just slightly, a flicker of understanding. "I see." I stood up and walked to the desk in the corner of the living room. I pulled out a thick folder and set it on the table in front of her. "Ms. Richardson," I said, "I know why you're here, and I have documentation to explain everything." I opened the folder. Inside were printed copies of the bank statements showing the $71,000 in unauthorized transfers. The forged letter from Dr. Foster. The letter from Dr. Foster confirming the forgery. The toxicology report showing diazepam in the pie. A transcript of the recorded confrontation with Rachel and Garrett. Janet flipped through the pages slowly. Her face grew more serious with each one. "Mr. Patterson," she said quietly, "your daughter filed this report the day before she was arrested." "Yes," I said. A final attempt to undermine my credibility, to make it look like I was the one who couldn't be trusted. There was a knock at the door. I stood. "That'll be my attorney." I opened the door. Charles Freeman stepped inside carrying his own briefcase. Ms. Richardson, Charles said, extending his hand. I'm Charles Freeman, Mr. Patterson's attorney. I can confirm that my client is fully competent. In fact, he's the victim here, not the perpetrator. Janet shook his hand. I can see that, she said. She turned back to me. Mr. Patterson, based on my assessment, you are fully capable of independent living. This report is clearly retaliatory in nature. I'll be closing this case as unfounded and forwarding my findings to the prosecutor's office. This will strengthen the case against your daughter. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Thank you, Ms. Richardson. She stood and gathered her papers. I've seen a lot of elder exploitation cases, Mr. Patterson. Yours is one of the clearest and one of the saddest. I'm sorry you had to go through this. So am I said. She handed me her card. If you need anything, documentation for the trial testimony, anything, call me. I took the card. I will. Charles walked her to the door. After she left, he turned to me. That went well, he said. Better than I expected, I admitted. Andrew came downstairs, Lily trailing behind him. She was holding her stuffed bear. Dad, Andrew said, is everything okay? Yes, I said. Ms. Richardson confirmed what we already knew. I'm fine. The report was baseless. Andrew exhaled in relief. So that's it. No more threats. Not from Rachel, I said. I looked at Lily. She was standing quietly by the couch, watching us with wide eyes. But we still have a little girl to raise, I said. And that's going to take everything we've got. That evening, after Lily was in bed, I sat with Andrew in the living room. I've been thinking, I said. About what? About leaving? Andrew looked at me. Leaving Ohio, I nodded. There's nothing here for us anymore. Rachel's in jail. Garrett's cooperating with the prosecution. Everyone in town knows what happened. Every time I go to the grocery store, people stare. Every time Lily goes to school, the other kids will whisper about her mom. Andrew was quiet for a moment. Where would we go? Pennsylvania, I said. Your mother's home state. The mountains there. She always said they brought her peace. Andrew's eyes softened. A fresh start. For all of us, I said. Lily deserves to grow up somewhere she's not defined by her mother's mistakes. Somewhere she can just be a kid. Andrew nodded slowly. When would we leave? Spring, I said. After the trial. After everything's settled. Andrew reached over and squeezed my shoulder. Then let's do it. That night I sat at the desk and opened my laptop. I searched for real estate listings in Pennsylvania. Small houses near the mountains. Places with big yards where Lily could run and play. Places where the neighbors didn't know our story. Places where we could breathe again. I clicked through photos of white farmhouses with wraparound porches, cabins tucked into the hills, towns with names like Wellsboro and Pine Creek and Eagles Mere. Margaret's voice echoed in my mind. The mountains, Doug. That's where I felt closest to God. That's where I felt free. I closed my eyes. We're going home, Margaret, I whispered. We're going home. Outside, the snow had stopped. The sky was clearing. Through the window, I could see the first stars beginning to appear. Spring was coming, and with it, maybe a chance to begin again. Spring came quietly to Ohio. The snow melted, revealing patches of gray-brown grass that would soon turn green. The days grew longer. The air softened. And in my small house, we began the work of learning how to let go. I started packing in early March. Andrew helped me wrap dishes in newspaper and box up books. Lily played in her room, surrounded by stuffed animals and crayons. She didn't fully understand what it meant to move. To her, it was just another change in a year full of them. I tried to make it feel like an adventure. We're going to live near the mountains, I told her one morning. There will be trees to climb and streams to splash in. Her eyes lit up. Can I bring Mr. Bear? Of course, I said. Mr. Bear comes with us. One afternoon, I climbed into the attic to sort through old boxes. The air was dusty and still. Sunlight streamed through the small window, illuminating motes of dust that floated like snow. I pulled down a cardboard box labeled Margaret. Photos. I carried it downstairs and set it on the kitchen table. Inside was our wedding album. I hadn't opened it in years. I sat down and slowly turned the pages. There she was, Margaret, in her white dress, smiling so brightly it almost hurt to look at. And there I was, young and hopeful, my arm around her waist, my whole future ahead of me. We'd been married in a small church in Pennsylvania, her hometown. The reception was in her parents' backyard under a canopy of oak trees. I remembered the way she'd laughed that day. The way she'd danced in the grass, barefoot, her veil trailing behind her. I closed my eyes. 6 years ago, the night before Margaret died, she'd lain in the hospital bed holding my hand. Her voice had been weak, but her grip was strong. "City Douglas," she'd said. "If something happens to me, promise me you'll go back to Pennsylvania." "Don't talk like that," I'd said. "You're going to be fine. Promise me," she'd insisted. "Do you remember our honeymoon, the mountains, the streams, the big oak tree we sat under?" "Of course I remember." "If life here ever gets too hard," she'd whispered, "go back there. The mountains will bring you peace." I'd promised her, but I never thought I'd actually do it. I'd stayed in Ohio. I'd buried her here. I'd lived in this house alone, surrounded by her things, unable to leave, until now. I opened my eyes and looked at the photo again. "Oh, you knew, didn't you?" I whispered. "Somehow you knew I'd need this." That evening I told Andrew about the house I'd found online. It was a small white farmhouse just outside Margaret's hometown, nestled at the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains. 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, a big backyard with an oak tree. "It's perfect," I said. Andrew smiled. "Mom would love it." "I know." A few days later, Lily came into the kitchen while I was taping up a box. "Oh, Grandpa!" "Yes, sweetheart." "Why are we leaving?" I set down the tape and knelt next to her. "Because sometimes we need a fresh start, honey. A place where we can be happy again." "Will Mommy know where to find us?" My chest tightened. If she needs to, she will. But right now, it's just us. You, me, and Uncle Andrew. Lily nodded slowly. Then she looked up at me with those big, serious eyes. "Will there be trees to climb?" I smiled. "Lots of them, and a big yard too." She grinned. "Okay." Andrew found me in the garage later that week. I was sorting through old tools, deciding what to keep and what to donate. "Dad!" "Yeah. Are we running away?" I paused and looked at him. "No," I said. "We're running toward something. Toward the life your mother always wanted for me. For us." Andrew leaned against the workbench. "She'd be proud of you, you know, for protecting Lily, for standing up to Rachel." "I hope so," I said quietly. "I know so." On our last week in Ohio, Henry Walsh stopped by. He helped me load a few heavy boxes into the moving truck. Afterward, we stood in the driveway drinking coffee in the cool spring air. "You're a good man, Douglas," Henry said. "Don't ever doubt that." "Thank you, Henry, for everything, for being there when I needed you most." "That's what neighbors are for." We shook hands. Then he pulled me into a hug. "Take care of yourself," he said. "And that little girl." "I will." The night before we left, I stood in the empty living room. All the furniture was gone. The walls were bare. The only sound was the echo of my footsteps on the hardwood floor. I looked around. This was the house where Margaret and I had raised our children, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where she died, and where just a few months ago, my daughter had tried to poison me. I thought about Christmas Eve, about the pie, about Rachel's face when she realized I knew. I thought about Lily upstairs in her room, clutching Mr. Bear and asking if there would be trees to climb. I took a deep breath. "We're going to be okay," I whispered to the empty room. "We're going to be okay." The next morning, Andrew loaded the last box into the truck. "That's it," he said. "We're ready." Lily climbed into the back seat, holding Mr. Bear. "Grandpa, are we leaving now?" "Almost, sweetheart," I said. "There's one more thing I need to do." Andrew looked at me. "Dad," I grabbed my coat and keys. I need to visit your mother. I need to tell her we're going home. I drove to Pennsylvania alone 3 days before the move. The highway stretched ahead of me, winding through hills that grew taller with every mile. By late afternoon, I reached the small cemetery on the outskirts of Margaret's hometown. Spring flowers, wild daisies, and dandelions dotted the grass around the graves. I parked near the iron gate and walked inside. Margaret's grave was under a large oak tree, just the kind of tree she'd always loved. The headstone was simple, gray granite, clean lines. Margaret Ann Patterson, 1964 to 2018. Beloved wife and mother. I knelt down and placed a bouquet of wildflowers on the grass in front of the stone. "Hi, Margaret," I said softly. "It's been a while. Too long." The wind rustled through the oak leaves above me. It was the only sound. I took a breath. "I'm sorry I haven't visited more often. I told myself I was too busy, but the truth is I was scared. Scared to face you after everything." I traced my fingers over the engraved letters of her name. "You were right about Rachel," I said. "You always saw things I didn't want to see. You warned me that she felt entitled, that she'd take advantage if I didn't set boundaries, and I didn't listen." My voice cracked. "She tried to take everything from me, Margaret. The money, the house, my dignity. She made me doubt my own mind. And when that wasn't enough, she tried to drug me, to make me incompetent." I closed my eyes. I had to turn her in. I had to watch her get arrested. Our daughter, your little girl. The grief hit me like a wave. I keep asking myself, did I fail as a father? Did I love her too much? Or not enough? Where did I go wrong? I opened my eyes and looked at the headstone. But then I think about Lily. And I know, if I'd let Rachel go, she wouldn't have stopped. She might have hurt Lily next. Or Andrew. So I made the hardest choice of my life. I chose justice over family. Or maybe I chose a different kind of love. The kind that protects even when it hurts. I sat back on my heels and wiped my eyes. "Do you remember what you used to say?" I asked. "That love without accountability isn't love at all, it's enablement." I didn't understand what you meant back then. I thought love meant giving everything no matter the cost. But you were teaching me something deeper. You were teaching me that real love requires boundaries, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no, to stand firm, to let someone face the consequences of their choices. I finally understand now, Margaret. I wish it hadn't taken me so long. I sat in silence for a moment, listening to the wind. I've forgiven her, Margaret. I really have. The anger is gone. All that's left is sadness and a kind of peace. I paused, letting the words settle. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean erasing the consequences. You taught me that. I can forgive her and still hold her accountable. I can love her and still protect myself. Those things aren't opposites. They're balance. I pulled a dandelion from the grass and twirled it between my fingers. I'm taking care of Lily now, your granddaughter. She's 7 years old, Margaret, and she has your smile. I smiled through the tears. I'm going to raise her the way we should have raised Rachel. With love, yes, but also with boundaries, with honesty, and with lessons about consequences. She'll know that actions have weight, that trust is earned, not given freely, that love is strong enough to say hard things. I won't make the same mistake twice. I set the dandelion on the grave next to the bouquet. Andrew's been incredible through all of this, I said. He stayed with me when I needed him most. He helped me see the truth when I was still in denial. He stood by my side when Rachel was arrested. You'd be so proud of him, Margaret. He has your courage, your integrity, your ability to love fiercely while still standing firm. I think he's going to propose to Sarah soon. She's a good woman, kind, strong. She reminds me of you in some ways. Our family is going to be okay. Different than we imagined. Smaller, maybe, but stronger. I stood up slowly and brushed the dirt from my knees. I'm bringing Lily here, to your home. Andrew and I found a little house near the mountains, just like you wanted. There's a big oak tree in the backyard. It reminded me of the one we sat under on our honeymoon. Do you remember you said someday we'd retire here? It took longer than I expected, but I'm finally coming home. I placed my hand on the cold granite of the headstone. Thank you, my love, for 28 happy years, for teaching me what real love looks like, for giving me a son like Andrew who has your strength. I'll bring Lily to visit you soon. She should know what kind of woman her grandmother was. Rest easy, Margaret. I'm going to be okay. We're all going to be okay. I stood there for a long time, listening to the wind in the oak tree. Then I turned and walked back to the car. As I reached for the door handle, my phone buzzed. A text message from the prosecutor's office. Trial date for Rachel Patterson has been set. June 15, 2024. Your presence is encouraged, but not required. I stared at the screen. June. 2 months away. I didn't know yet if I would go. Part of me wanted closure. Part of me wanted to move forward and never look back. But I knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened in that courtroom, I had already found peace within myself. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and looked up at the sky. The clouds were clearing. The sun was breaking through. I'm ready, I whispered, and I got into the car and drove toward the mountains. We moved into the house near Margaret's hometown at the end of April. It was smaller than the house in Ohio, but brighter. The windows faced east, catching the full morning sun, and in the backyard, just as I'd hoped, stood a massive oak tree with branches thick enough for a child to climb. The house itself was a single-story cottage painted a soft, butter yellow. A wide front porch wrapped around 2 sides lined with rocking chairs I'd bought at a yard sale. From the porch, you could see the Blue Ridge Mountains rising in the distance, their peaks still dusted with the last of the winter snow. It felt like home the moment we arrived. Lily was the first one out of the truck. She bolted straight for the backyard, her stuffed bear tucked under one arm. I watched from the porch as she stopped in front of the oak tree and looked up, shielding her eyes from the sun. Then she turned and ran back to me, her face lit up with the first real smile I'd seen in weeks. Grandpa, look, there's a swing. Andrew had hung it the day before, a simple wooden seat on 2 thick ropes. He'd tested it himself to make sure it was safe. Want me to push you? I asked. Lily nodded eagerly and climbed onto the seat. I gave her a gentle push. She laughed bright and clear like wind chimes. Yeah, higher, Grandpa, higher. I pushed her higher, and her laughter filled the air. For the first time in months, I felt something close to joy. That afternoon, Andrew and I planted a cherry blossom tree next to the oak. He'd bought it from a nursery on the drive up. It was small, barely taller than Lily, but strong. Mom loved cherry blossoms, Andrew said as we dug the hole. I know. Every spring she'd take you to the park to see them bloom. We worked in silence for a while, shoveling dirt and setting the sapling into the ground. Lily helped her small hands covered in mud. Why are we planting a tree, Grandpa? She asked. To remember someone very special. Your grandmother. She would have loved this place. Lily looked at the sapling thoughtfully. Will it get big like the oak tree? Someday, if we take care of it. She nodded seriously. I'll help water it. I know you will, sweetheart. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, I sat under the oak tree and watched Lily play. She was chasing a butterfly across the grass, her laughter echoing in the stillness. Andrew sat down beside me. Dad, yeah. Do you think you'll ever forgive Rachel? I looked at him. I already have son in my heart. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean letting her back into our lives if she doesn't change. Andrew nodded slowly. Do you think she'll ever understand what she did? I don't know. But I hope someday she finds peace. Not for me, for her own soul. We sat in silence for a moment, watching Lily. You did the right thing, Dad. Andrew said quietly. Standing up to her. Protecting yourself. Protecting Lily. I hope so. I know so. Lily ran over to us, breathless and grinning. Grandpa, are we safe now? The question hit me harder than I expected. I pulled her into my lap and wrapped my arms around her. Yes, sweetheart, we're safe now. She rested her head against my chest. I like it here, it's quiet. Me too, honey, me too. I looked out toward the mountains. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple. The air smelled like fresh earth and pine. You were right, my love, I thought. The mountains really do bring peace. I thought about everything that had happened. About Rachel, about the pie, about the money, about the lies, about the moment I'd realized my own daughter had tried to destroy me. And I thought about the choice I'd made, to stand up, to fight back, to protect myself and the people I loved. It had been the hardest choice of my life, but it had also been the right one. Sacrifice has limits. I'd given Rachel everything I could, but that didn't give her the right to destroy me. Forgiveness and justice can coexist. I'd forgiven her, but I wouldn't erase what she'd done. Real family is about protection, not exploitation. Andrew and Lily, they were my real family now. The ones who stood by me. The ones who loved me without trying to take from me. And sometimes the hardest choice is choosing yourself. But it's also the bravest. Rachel's trial was scheduled for June 15th. I still didn't know if I would attend. Part of me wanted to see her one more time. To look her in the eye. To hear what she had to say. But another part of me had already said goodbye. Whatever happened in that courtroom, I knew one thing for certain. I had chosen life. I had chosen Lily. I had chosen peace. And for the first time in years, maybe decades, I felt free. Grandpa, Lily called from the swing. Come push me again. I stood up slowly. My knees ached. I was 58 after all, but my heart felt lighter than it had in years. Andrew grinned. Race you. You're on. The three of us, grandfather, son, and granddaughter, ran across the green grass under the fading light. Lily's laughter rang out bright and clear and free, and I thought, this is what it means to be alive. The cherry blossom tree stood small and fragile beside the mighty oak, but it would grow. With time and care and love, it would bloom, just like us. We were starting over, building something new, something honest, something real. The past would always be there. The scars would never fully fade, but they didn't have to define us. We had each other. We had this place. We had hope, and that was enough. As the last light disappeared behind the mountains, I gathered Lily in my arms and carried her inside. Andrew followed his hand on my shoulder. Behind us, the swing swayed gently in the evening breeze, empty now, but ready for tomorrow. When I reflect on everything that happened, I realize how close I came to losing everything. Not just my money, but my dignity, my sanity, and my life. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any wound because it comes from the people you trust most. I never imagined my own daughter would be capable of such cruelty, but God gave me the strength to see the truth when I needed it most. My advice to anyone listening to these grandpa stories: don't make the same mistakes I did. Set boundaries early, even with family. Love doesn't mean enabling. God teaches us to love with wisdom, not blind trust. And remember, forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. I forgave Rachel, but I also protected myself and Lily. That's not cruelty. That's survival. Family betrayal taught me that real family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who stands by you when everything falls apart. Andrew and Lily are my true family now, and through God's grace we're building something new, something honest, something safe. These grandpa stories aren't easy to share, but if my experience with family betrayal can help even one person recognize the warning signs and protect themselves, then the pain was worth it. If you're going through something similar, don't suffer in silence. Seek help. Document everything, and trust that God will guide you to the right path even when it's the hardest one. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt grandpa stories and hit the share button to help others who might need to hear this. Thank you for staying with me until the end. A quick note. Some upcoming stories may contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If you prefer not to continue, feel free to explore other content that suits you better. God bless you all.